ladies and gentlemen. Does anybody know what a factor is? Yeah, just stop. Isabel, what's a factor?
The two numbers that you multiply together in a multiplication problem.
Yep. Factors are the two numbers you multiply together. Together in a multiplication problem. Two numbers that you multiply together in a multiplication problem. And what the book is going to ask you to do is it's going to ask you, it will say list all factors of, let's say, 8. And what you need to do when they ask you to do that on your paper is you need to write the number 8. And then you need to write down all of the numbers that you could multiply to get the number 8. And here's a very helpful clue for you. Every number has at least 2 factors. And that would be for the number 8, you have the number 1 and the number 8 because 1 times 8 is 8, correct? And I would suggest as you do these, always think of factors in pairs because there's usually going to be 2 that give you that number. Sometimes there's only 1, like 9, you can just write 3 down because it's 3 times 3. But most of the other ones have 2 factors. But not only does 1 and 8 give you 8, but Elijah, you also have 4 times 2. And I will read them from least to greatest, so I very much would appreciate when you write them down on your paper to do that, because when we get to something that has a lot of factors, like 24, I don't want to have to reread the answers 15 times because you can't tell. Drew, you with me? You writing this down or no? Just checking. Because I don't want to have to reread it 1,000 times because you don't have it in order and you don't know if ones I read. So I need you to write them in order. And here's how I'd like you to do it. Again, write each number with its pair that gives you that. And you always want to start with 1. 1 times what is 24? 24. So put that guy at the end. 1 times 24. What would be my next factor of 24? What else times what gives me 24? Jillian?
2.
Times
12.
12. And I will tell you thousands of times I see somebody write the number 2 down, but they don't write the number 12 down. Millions of times. So make sure you write them down in pairs. After 2 then, the next factors of 12 would be? Nelson? How about 3? 3 times what is 24? Jaden?
4.
3 times 8, I believe.
What?
3 times what is 24? I believe that's 8.
Oh, I thought you said 12. No, just 12.
And then, last but not least, we have the last group there, which is 4 times 6. So when you write them on your paper, I really need them to be in order from least to greatest. Otherwise, because I'm going to read them like that, and if you don't have them in that order, you're going to ask me to reread it 5 or 6 times because you couldn't keep track, and then it'll just make life hard on everybody. Let's do one more. How about factors of 36? I'll give you a second. You write down factors of 36. And this, like we've said before, if you don't know your multiplication tables, these are going to be kind of tough. Everything boils down to those easy multiplication things. Multiplication, division, it's all kind of the same there. Write down all the factors of 36, please. You should know what times what gives you 36. Then there's a couple others in there that you may not, but you should be able to figure them out. what is 36? Who wants to shoot their list at me? Laney Kavar, what do we got?
1, and then should I say 36?
Yeah, give me its pair.
36.
1 and 36.
2 and 13.
How about 2 and 18 actually? 2 times 13 is 26. I can see where that would be there. What else, Laney?
3
Times?
11.
How about 12? Yes?
8.
Nope.
4.
4 times
6.
4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 9. And the last one we still need is 8 times 4 is 32. Last one, Keith, is
6 times 6.
right. You only need to write 1 6. Okay, so you should have, and 36 is a tough one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 36 has 9 whole number factors. 9 of them. And that's probably the hardest one they would give you. Okay, now a couple questions come up here. Write this down here. How do you know? How do you know if 2 is a factor of any number? For example, if I have the number 12, how do I know that 2 is a factor of 12 or not a factor? If I have 13, how do I know if 2 is a factor? Or if I have 16, how do you know if 2 is a factor? Think about cutting numbers in half when we talk about finding halves of numbers. 2 will always be a factor of what type of number? 2 is always a factor of what type of number? Isabel?
Even numbers?
Exactly. 2 is always a factor of an even number. Okay, so if you have a number like 26, you know that in your list of factors, besides 1 and 26, 2 has to be there. Because any even number is some number times 2. Or what is half of 26? That is 13. Okay, so those are one of the clues you can use. How do you know if 5 is a factor? In other words, if I have the number 10 or 13 or 25, which of those would 5 be a factor of, and how do you know? And it probably helps if you think about counting by 5s. What do you know about every number when you count by 5? What do you always get? Charlie?
It's always ending 0 or 5.
Right. 5 is a factor if it ends with a 0 or a 5. Okay, so if you have something like 10, you know that in your list of factors, besides 1 and 10, you know 5 goes into it. I guess we also know that 2 goes into it because it's an even number. Does 10 have any other factors that you know of? No. What about 25? You know that 1 and 25 are, and you know that, what else is a factor?
5 and 5.
5 and 5, but you just have to write one of those down. What else might they ask us? 2s and 5s. List all factors. There's that phone again, huh? Let me give you one more to do. How about you list all factors of 18. Listing all factors of 18. One more try at this here. All factors of 18. All the factors of 18. Or if I asked you, how many factors does 18 have? What would you tell me? How many factors did you come up with? How many and what were they? How many factors did you come up with 18? Well, Carol, how many factors did you get?
6.
6 factors of 18, let's see what they are. You got?
1 and 18.
Yep.
2 and
9,
9. And 3 and 6.
3 and 6. And that would make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Now there will be some numbers that only have 2 factors. For example, 7. What times what gives you 7? Elijah? Just 1 and 7. Number 19, 2 factors, just 1 and 19. 21, how many factors? 4. 1 and 21 and 3 times 7. So don't think just because something's odd that it only has 2 factors. Okay, there are odd numbers that have lots more factors than that. So this concludes your fun and exciting